Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reed's Spider-Man Crawl Space Edition. Please check us out at the SpidermanCrawlspace.com. Well, it's taken me a little while, guys, but here we are, as promised, my review of the current midpoint of King in Black here, the current Venom crossover, huge story by Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, and Eben Kolo, as we get into the fact that Null, the Dark Lord, has brought to Earth and brought his symbiont army down too. So what do I think of the current crossover? My favorite tie-ins and my ones that are only okay. Well, let's get right to the pros with the main tie-in series with the King in Black 1 through 3 and the Venom tie-in. So first of all, the pros. The one thing is the storyline does hit you really hard. There is that sense of doom that they've been waiting from Venom, of course, Eddie Brock, all the way to the Avengers. The nice setup of him trying to get his son Dylan out of the way, knowing that really Null needs to come after him to really have his plan succeed. And this is kind of his backup to put him in the lockup and actually take story threads all the way from the other as well as Spider-Man storylines. It was a really nice little move by Cates. And he really brings in, because also Null comes in hitting hard and fast to the Avengers, the X-Men, all the heroes involved in the storyline. And believe it or not, we get the confrontation right away with Venom, which actually does not last very long, which of course we kind of saw that happening. I mean, it's not that Eddie doesn't pull up a good fight, and you actually get to see some very interesting things with Null as he brings up the point of, you know, the humanity that was instilled to his symbionts thanks to Thor's attack on the original Grendel dragon so many centuries ago, not to mention really what he's done. And actually it shows us how fast and quick and powerful Null is. I mean, this is a guy who, using his dark sword, you know, killed a Celestial, which of course made nowhere, as we found out. And the fact that he's able to take out the Sentry right away, absorb the Void, and then go from there is actually pretty hard hitting and fast. And it actually makes for a good story, because you see Eddie really kind of throw himself to it, and the despair that happens as Iron Man, the Fantastic Four, and other members really try to fight Null as he encases the Earth in his, of course, symbiont hive. And it really is a dark story that comes into it. And although we do see some things such as Dylan, of course, Brock coming in here really to use his own powers, as we find out he's kind of a point between the Codex and the symbiont hive part, as they say, the light, as it's pointed out, where he's able to defeat several of the symbionts, allowing for some pretty cool little pieces of transfers from Iron Man making his own symbiont armor and bringing the Celestials into it, to of course the fact that the Avengers and X-Men are pushing Null back. And really he seems pretty good until of course Thor shows up and fights him. But of course, as we know, Null still overpowers Thor, even though it's a big fight out battle, which is pretty interesting. But the fact that he actually wants Thor to watch and say that everything he did to him centuries ago is now for Null, as he destroys his adoptive world. But of course, the little piece getting out, not only does they get out the fact that the Silver Surfer is apparently the god of light, as Null is the god of darkness, actually shows for one point that Null turns his head going, uh-oh, I think I have a slight problem. Not to mention the fact that Captain America is freed thanks to Dylan and some of the other members of the heroes, also does a problem as he realizes that the thing Captain America free, it's going to be Inspired. And I have to say the Venom tie-ins are really good, because it really is, after Brock is killed, to actually see him going through all the different various Venoms and hosts and meeting their, you know, the hive presence everywhere from the original person in the Vietnam era to, of course, Flash Thompson show up, is really cool, because you see Brock actually starting to plan, even though he is technically dead, in the hive mind to start defeating Null from the inside, which of course he's partially aware of, but he's partially also distracted. So it kind of builds a nice dark story and kind of a little piece into that, but it only goes so far. And of course that leads to the cons. This feels like a big crossover like anything else. We don't really feel major things. We know there's going to be major implements with Venom in the long run, as well as several peoples, and Spider-Man's partially involved with this, but of course we're not going to see probably as much of an impact as we think that it's going to be. So it kind of leads to a little bit of, it feels like an overblown crossover. That's a crossover with most of the books in the Marvel universe, including Daredevil, X-Men, and a few others, but at the same time his main books are left alone. Spider-Man's involved in the storyline, but his own book is not involved. The X-Men are involved, but their own books are kind of left in the limbo. Daredevil is going to be constantly done, and that of course leads us to a lot of the crossover. So in the main series itself, I'm going to give it a B right now. The issues have their strong and dark, and it's actually well storycrafted, as Cates and Stegman and Khalil have really been building this with Venom since day one. So they actually start seeing their storylines start to pay off, all the dots connected and everything else, as well as some of the pieces of the mystery in it still evolve, make it a very strong storyline. But At the same time, you're not quite sure really how this is going to all end, especially as this is the grand finale for Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman with their Venom run here in the next couple of months. So the main series and tie-ins here, I'm going to give a B to. They're not too bad, and I kind of like it, and the artwork is fantastic. And I really like seeing these various characters from the Marvel Universe, not to mention all the pieces that have been pushly assembled ever since the first issue of Venom of the current run series, as well as Absolute Carnage and some of the other pieces are all flowing together. Which kind of leads us to our tie-in issue. So I'm going to actually bring these in as what I consider the best tie-in issues and books you probably should be reading once they're over. And then, of course, the ones that are not too bad, but don't really kind of often forgettable. The first one I'm really going to bring up is, of course, the new Black Cat series by Jed Makeley and Olin Vila. I have to say, the main series is great. It really captures who Felicia Hardy is as the Black Cat. I really enjoy it, and even though she's kind of swept into these storylines, trying to steal the kind of areas to kind of get a non-evil, symbiote armor to, of course, break the hold and, of course, get pieces for Null, is actually extremely well done. The characterization is great and how Black Cat's kind of put into the storyline, but she also knows she's got to do this for the greater good. And I gotta say, the stories are really fun between the different members of the symbiont area, the ghost dog, and everything else. Make for a really fun story. And the conclusion to issue 2 with her little symbiont armor is also really awesome, which I like. But the truth is, for strong characterization, built in off the current crossover and everything else, the new title definitely gets an A from me. I really like it. It really gets Felicia down to the who heart is of it, and the fact that even though she's put in a very horrible situation, she's going to make the best of it, and at the same time, she might have a little fun along the way, even though it's the end of the world as we know it. Next one I'm going to go into, of course, is Kurt Busiek's Namor series with Ben Ducey with the Black Tide. Kurt Busiek has never said anything how much he likes only continuity, but how much he loves Namor. And it's really nice because I really like how this storyline flashes back to some of the early inflections that were involved with Null post his original imprisonment, as well as kind of showing a shattered friendship that happened. I mean, as they've known since the early days of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, a lot of the characters that Namor worked with, from Atuma to Lyra to, of course, Dora, they were all friends at one time. They just believed in helping the ocean and helping the earth. And of course, they all drifted between rulers and conquerors. And I really like the storyline because it really kind of brings into like this tight friendship of good young people that was unfortunately broken due to hard choices, dark powers that they really couldn't control or understood, and what kind of led to, and how Namor is kind of using that to help him try to fight against Null now in the symbiote invasion. So it's a really nice storyline because it really captures the emphasis of who Namor is, actually being a conflicted person and a king and ruler who has come from some dark days and has sometimes traveled on the bad guy side too, but always done what was best for his people and the kingdom and, of course, the ocean. So it's a really nice story, and I'm going to give it a B+. I've really been enjoying it. It's really got some nice pieces, and I really like the connections they're done to it. Another one I'm actually going to give a high end up to is, of course, the current Spider-Woman series by Carla Pages and Pere Perez. It's been well done, even though it's been boosting a lot of stuff that happened before the crossover with Jessica Drew. I'm getting my Spider-Woman mixed up. We will not talk about the world's worst psychic. We shall talk about Jessica Drew. It's been very interesting how her powers have really been having the problems, and how she's had to go to the extremes, and also her loss of friendship between Captain Marvel and a few other things, and the fact she's kind of pushed herself to do right by taking a lot of the serum and the drugs to actually stop the symbionts in her storyline, but how it's just pushed her and broken her, and how she's really just doing it to save the world, save her son, but at the same time all the sacrifices she's had and how those trusts have been broken because people and her friends are trying her not to make her lives worse, and unfortunately she's doing it for the greater good, sacrifice and all. But it's a very conflicting, dramatic storyline, even though it's caught in a crossover, but it's pretty good. I'm going to give it a kind of a B. I've really been enjoying the stories that have been happening. Not that it hasn't been too bad of a comic series, but I think this dark turn's been really, really well done. Another one I'm actually going to throw at you, two ones that I'm not going to give a grade to because they're just fun stories and they're kind of forgotten, is, of course, Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk with Alan Cooley, which was the Christmas story here, which was actually a full silent issue and dealing with the current issues with the Immortal Hulk as he's losing power, and the fact that he's kind of using his smarts to fight a symbiont possessed law enforcement officers using sonics and smarts to defeat him. It's actually a really well drawn issue and structured, but at the same time, I don't really think it really adds anything what's going on. The fact that the Immortal Hulk's just kind of caught in the crossover, the fact that he's been having so many problems since the leader turned his powers and his mindscape on him, if you read the main Hulk board. It's good, but it's not really essential for not only the crossover, but the Immortal Hulk storyline itself. I mean, there's some aspects of it, but it's not really much. Same thing goes for the Doctor Doom Iron Man story by Christopher Cattell and Salvador Royoka. It's a fun Christmas story and really brings Santa Claus as actually a real person into the Marvel Universe, as apparently possibly former Sorcerer Supreme, as Doctor Doom puts it. It's really well art-wise, and it's a fun story as they try to field free Santa and actually help with the magic against No, but the truth is, it's nothing too crazy. It's just kind of a fun team up and a fun holiday story. It's nothing too well done, even if it kind of establishes Kulathon and, of course, Santa as real characters in the Marvel Universe. It's fun, but at the same time, it wasn't really hugely necessary for anything. Last ones I'm going to kind of give up to is The Union by Paul Christel and Kellen Cabello. It's not bad. I really like the UK superheroes of the Marvel Universe, and I think they've been really needed for a long time for a lot of storylines. We really haven't seen much done with them since Civil War, which was now 15 years ago. It's not a bad story. It's okay. It's if you like the classic characters and what they're doing in the grand scheme of things during the King in Black storyline, it's fun. I don't know if you really see a lot of necessary what is to the storyline versus, like, as we all know, in the Marvel Universe, it seems to experience in New York City what's going on in the rest of the world. And that's kind of what this story serves as. It's fun and scrappy, as my dog sounds like upstairs, but it's nothing really much. I mean, if you're a completist and you like the UK superheroes, or especially Union Jack, I would definitely check it out, but it really gets a C for me. It's nothing really needed or reliable, nothing I really need in the collection, but it's fun to see what's going on in the other parts of the Marvel Universe in the story. And with that, guys, actually, I'm going to leave it alone at that for my grades here for the main King in Black, and as well as everything else. I'll be back in a few short days here to review the current issue of course, of Amazing Spider-Man, issues 57 and 58 of the Aftermath of Last Rites. And for more information, guys, on your favorite parts and podcasts and news, please check us out at thespidermancrawlspace.com for more information. Like or subscribe to our channels, and I will see everybody later on the Crawl Space.